The long-awaited scouting update has finally arrived. And I do emphasize finally because it feels like we've been waiting forever. I'm excited to finally get on it. I will say, as you can see, the dancing watermark around the screen right in the middle. This is a sponsored video. I'm on the game a little bit early, but all thoughts and opinions are, of course, as always, my own. I know everyone loves to say I'm a shill for whatever reason, but I've never said an opinion I don't agree with, at least at the time. And not everything's going to be positive. There are some things I would tweak about scouting, and I will tell you guys in this video. And I've tried to record this a couple times now because there is a lot of information to give you guys, because I have opinions about the way you should be scouting, but some of that is better shown, and I can't just say it. So I think first it's important to check out the key info, because this timeline is really, really important. With scouting, as you guys are going to see in this video, it's less so involved than it previously was. Previously, you would have weekly scouting. It would open up in week 3, and then through all the regular season, and then skip the playoffs into the offseason, you could use a certain amount of points to find out about whichever player you wanted to find out about. Not the case anymore. And there are pros and cons to that. The pro is it's more realistic, and the entire scouting is definitely more realistic in some ways. My biggest downside about scouting is that I wish I could know more about the players. And in a lot of cases, you're really only going to know about like less than 10. And I really don't love that, because I want to know more about just a few players. I want to know more about more than just a few players. So you guys are going to see what I mean by this, but this key information is super important, because with the weeks here, everything is not involved until it becomes involved. So week 1, you find out about the prospects. This does work with created draft classes. So if you download a class, you're still going to get storylines in the news section for the draft. It works the same way. Their names have just changed, and the school is going to change, obviously, but the storylines still work the same. I think ratings can be changed as well in already created draft classes. So that is something that's interesting to note. But I think this probably works best with auto-generated classes, and I find that more fun anyways sometimes. I don't know. It depends on how I'm feeling, but whatever. Week 2, you select a position focus for area scout. So you have different area scouts. It's not just national. You have Southeast, you have Northeast. We can't see the region breakdown just yet, but you can see it on here. Southeast, Northeast, Central, West, and then National. And everyone is a different tier. Everyone has a different tier. Tier 3 is the best. You always, always, always want your Tier 3 scout to be your national guy. Because, as you guys are going to see in a little bit here, it's a scale from 0 up to 100% for what you know about each player. And your national guy, being your best, will get you the most information about the most prospects. And the position expertise is extremely important for that. And with the way that draft classes work and Madden team building works, I almost never want that to be involving tackles. So this is going to change a lot on a year-to-year basis, depending on what positions you need. Let's say I am a quarterback needy team. You can go L2, go to free agent scouts, and look for a tier 3 scout. Go ahead and sort that. And maybe I want to look for quarterback. There does happen to be a position expertise for quarterback there. So if I want to find out about QBs and find the most out about every quarterback, if I plan on taking a QB, I might hire a quarterback-focused positional scout, and they will become my tier 3 scout. I will make them my national scout, and then I will find out the most about the QBs. That being said, there are a lot more regions. You could, if you wanted to throw all your eggs into the quarterback basket, just fire these guys and learn about only the quarterbacks. That is a thing you can do. You're not limited on positional expertise, but you're not going to know a lot about the rest of the class. And you can only have one tier 3 guy because it's very powerful. You can only have one tier 2 and the rest are tier 1s. So that's important to note as well. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I want to know about different positions, so I'm not just going to throw all my eggs in one basket. I think we're going to figure out a lot about the QBs So there isn't really a point, in my opinion, to only know about quarterbacks. Cool thing about this as well is you guys might recognize some former players in here. Sort by tier 3. Alan Faneca was, an all-pro and I think Hall of Fame guard. So he has positional expertise for guards. TJ Hushmanzada, wide receiver in the league for a while. I mean, there are a lot in here, right? There are a lot. Brandon Marshall, Brian Arakpo, hook 'em horns. Blew a huge lead to Oklahoma. I'm upset about it. Rondé Barber's in there. Like, you guys get the point. And of course, those guys are going to have, positional expertise. Aqib Talib for the positions they actually played. Gary Brackett for the Colts. Marquise Colston. I mean, we saw Rondé Barber. There are a lot of guys in here. So just to give it some variation, I've decided to have a quarterback because we're going to say we need a QB. I've gone corner, receiver, middle linebacker, and I have one with both of the safety spots. And what you're going to do is assign regions for those guys. And the way you're going to decide what region you want those guys to be in is by looking at the actual draft class, which we can't see until regular season week 1. So scouting is a lot more involved now, and you're going to see each, key event. You're going to see each key event or in the key information here. That is going to pop up in your news tab. It doesn't actually pop up in the scouting or in your to-do list or whatever it's called here. It's going to be in this home section for activities. It isn't actually in the scouting section. You'll see what I mean in a minute. But you're finally going to see the draft class, week 1. And it's important to note what school these guys are in. There's a Cutler out of Vanderbilt that's a quarterback. That's fun. You guys remember Smokin' Jay? Vandy QB for the Broncos, Bears, Dolphins. Everyone knows Jay Cutler. But you can see each region here, and you can see where these guys are projected. So maybe the strength of the class, as is not entirely surprising, is the Southeast. That's the powerhouse for college football, really. And let's say we need a QB. We have guys on that. Grant Mueller in there, Bobby Cage. There's a lot of quarterbacks projected to go round 1, which is good that we have a quarterback as a national scout. Other positions in here as well. But it's important to go through, really look at the class. A lot of Wisconsin guys. But it's important to go through, really think about where all these guys are and where the strength of the class is, and assigning your scouts accordingly. What do I mean by that? Let's go ahead and break it down. So the way you want to think about it, let's start with Aqib Talib. I have a cornerback-focused scout. I see a lot of these corners. I'm looking about, where they are, at least the top ones. We have Oregon, so that's going to be west. We have Louisville, which is probably going to be southeast, right? And then we have Purdue, which is probably going to be central. Let's go ahead and confirm that. Ooh, Purdue might be northeast, even though Indiana is not the northeast. And Louisville, Kentucky's counting as northeast. I guess they just didn't want to stack the southeast. I think Louisville, Kentucky, is as south, but I could buy central as well. Northeast, I'm not buying. And then Purdue is Indiana. I don't know how I feel about that being northeast as well. But anyway, so what we're going to want to do, we see the strength of the cornerback class in the northeast. I'm going to assign Aqib Talib to the northeast. So let's change Aqib Talib and go northeast on him. That takes it off Mark Butler. Each guy can only be in a different area. You can't have 2 scouts in the same area. And you know what? This is a good time to point this out. We don't really see a lot of good-looking safeties round 2 to 3 projection and beyond. So maybe I'm going to fire my free safety scout and look to sign somebody else. You can just fire and sign these guys as much as you want. All right, Taylor Malone has outside linebackers. Let's get Taylor Malone going. All right, so Malik Andrews, top 5, southeast. Orlando Norris, Washington, that's going to be west. And left outside linebacker, we have Washington as well. Wisconsin, Clemson. So we could either go west or southeast here, and you can always change it as well. That's a thing to keep in mind. You can change it. It's already on west. Let's keep it as west for Taylor Malone. And this is glitched. It's not going to let you keep it. Wide receiver's a bit more up in the air. I think, you could go west. Carlos Correa, the Astros shortstop's now a receiver. That's fun. But North Carolina is going to be southeast. Clemson's going to be southeast. UCLA is going to be west. UCF is going to be southeast. Let's go southeast for receiver. And that leaves middle linebacker as central. We could check that to see if we want to keep it as that, or we could change it Again, you're not locked down for these at the start. Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, I mean, overwhelmingly in the top 3 at Southeast. And then Michigan, but Alabama. We could go Southeast for middle linebacker if we wanted to. It's, whatever you need more. These guys all start with 20%. And what you know about them is their player notes. That's always going to be traits. So always looks for the massive hit, big hitter trait. Struggles to find the ball in the air. That's probably plays ball conservative. Motor's always running hot, high motor. Often looks to rip ball from runners. That's strip ball trait. And then typically avoids getting flagged, is penalties, I don't know what to call, but he's not going to commit a lot of penalties, right? Those are those traits. Here's a big piece of information. The ratings. You can know a lot about a player, and this is where you have to make these decisions early. You have to click in at every one of them, and you can decide essentially who you want to take off your draft board immediately. So what I would say is an interesting way to do it, because you're not going to know about all these players. You just can't. You can't know about all these guys. Like, you think, oh, it's going to go 20%. Everyone's going to be at 100%. No, it does not work like that at all. So what you could do, right, is maybe take the first 10, maybe even less than that, for each position in the draft. Add that to your favorites list, right? And then we can go through each one of these guys. Malik Andrews, we can look at his physicals, and we could say, okay, I need him to at least have good speed. And we can pull up the key info here. Elite is best. That's going to be the highest for any rookie outside linebacker, or that scale. Great, good, all the way down to poor. So there is a huge scale there. That's going to be important. So let's say you have a certain threshold for athleticism. Like for a receiver, you don't ever want somebody with maybe decent or marginal speed. So you can just take them off your draft board, and you can start with that and then remove them if you want. And then if you look at your favorites list, it's only the players that you're considering drafting. So previously on scouting, I might have added only the players I want to draft, but I think the way to do it now might be working backwards and putting everybody on your draft board and then saying, okay, we're going to remove this guy because he doesn't meet the minimum athletic requirement, if that makes sense. So Orlando Norris, we can see has elite jumping and strength, or great to elite, and then good to great speed. That definitely meets our thresholds. So maybe we leave Orlando Norris on the board. Brian Andrews, I want to find someone who's particularly bad. Brian Andrews looks like we might definitely consider drafting him, as he is great to elite for everything except for strength. So this is an elite athlete. We know that right away. And even though we see his key rating only C for block shed so far, and that's pretty much all we know about him early on, and C power moves. But maybe we can say, hey, 6 foot 228. Maybe we move you back to safety. You're a great athlete. There's a chance we could do that. A cool thing about these new draft classes is the prospects have changed as well. And a lot of these guys are geared up for positional changes. So cornerbacks with great athleticism down the board, really listen to this. Really listen to what I'm telling you. Cornerbacks down the board that maybe aren't great cover corners at all, but are elite athletes. That's not Dalvin Mason at all. Marginal to decent change of direction. I'm out. But let's say elite athletes at the cornerback position, they might have route running. So you can change a receiver or a cornerback to receiver because they might have route running in there if they're just a great athlete. That's a thing to look out for. Like Chauncey Kennard, poor marginal speed, you can immediately take him off your draft board because you're not going to want to draft somebody with 85 speed at corner. You're just not going to do it. It's a little bit harder to find early on, but you are going to get the scouting results, combine, pro day in the offseason. So you can find out about those players then, and you can look at it a lot faster than just scrolling through and looking for, okay, do they have at least elite speed? So you guys get the point though. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too long-winded. I'm just really trying to break everything down for you guys. Week 2, that's when regional focus scouting is going to pop up in the top left, and you don't want to delegate that. You want to choose regional focus scouting or whatever. So national, we already know we wanted to focus on quarterbacks. So we're going to know the most about the QBs in the class. And again, you can change this. So you're going to press triangle. I started out with Northeast. We have Aqib Talib. We want Aqib Talib, of course, to focus on cornerbacks. You get a 5% efficiency boost. You guys can see that. 5% efficiency boost when scouting corners. So we're not going to waste it. We're going to choose corners. Southeast. We can see we have a 2% efficiency boost when scouting receivers. We know we want to do receivers. I already lined this all up. So we can go ahead and tell Steven Bowers, our receiver scout, to focus on receiver. Central. We already know we want that on middle linebacker. We saw the middle linebacker class. Again, you hit triangle or Y if you're on Xbox, but it's pizza, the top button on PlayStation. We'll do middle linebacker here and then click cross to confirm. And then you can hit cross again. And then again, you're going to want to hit pyramid on the top of your controller for West. Change positions. We know we want to do outside linebacker. It's 2% efficiency boost for scouting either left outside or right outside. We know, I believe that there was the best outside linebacker was a right outside linebacker. You can change it, but again, hit cross to confirm, and you'll go ahead and have those all assigned. The next landmark is week 7. You don't do anything there, but more progress is revealed via the National Scout. So you have 20 or 25% on everybody right now, and that will change drastically by week 7. I'm going to stop the simulation at week 6 and then go manually, but just to speed this up a little bit, I click mid-season. All right, so week 7, you don't see anything in the activities because you don't have to do anything right now, but you will see some updated information. These players will either be at 40 or 50%, sometimes even higher than that, because we had right outside linebacker, West on Orlando Norris. So we had this ready to go. And we can see that he has, well, it's tough to see because the freaking watermark, but we have A pursuit, B zone coverage. We already saw a scouting report for his player notes. We can see his traits, but now physicals. We see good to great speed, elite jumping, elite strength, elite acceleration, and more of these skills are starting to be revealed. He's got B zone coverage and A finesse moves, A pursuit. So Orlando Norris is looking pretty ridiculous already, but you're not going to have this type of information if you don't assign the scouts correctly. So let's go to a guy with 40%. Let's go Malik Andrews. He was right outside linebacker, but he was Southeast, and we focused on West. So for Malik Andrews, for his skills, we don't know quite as much. We see pursuit, we see finesse moves, we see awareness and zone coverage. The rest, question marks for right now. But A pursuit, B finesse moves, it's interesting. D zone coverage, not looking nearly as good as Orlando Norris, in my opinion. But it's early. But at this point, you're going to want to start identifying guys that you're really thinking about drafting. And it is early. Don't get me wrong. It is early. But you're going to want to think about players that are standing out. And you have to go in and look at these guys. And let's say George Woods. We see he's got decent throw accuracy mid and throw accuracy short. We see that his physicals, he's an okay athlete, nothing crazy, but decent. We see his throw power is decent to solid, and that's average. That isn't particularly good. So maybe George Woods, we can cross off the list of quarterback and say, we don't really want him. What about Earl Cutler? For his physicals, we see his throw power solid to good. He's not the best athlete. We're not really getting lucky with quarterbacks here. So we can say, hey, I don't really want someone that doesn't have a strong arm and isn't athletic. That sounds like a pretty average QB to me. So we can go ahead and cross Earl Cutler off the list. You have to make these tougher decisions. Grant Mueller, we can see great to elite for everything. This is a player I want to know more about. We want to know a lot more about it. Fast, old school, compact throwing motion. That sounds good. A spin move. So I want to know a lot more about Grant Mueller. He's a player that, well, you'll see next week, that we want to find out a lot more information about. So let's go to week 8 here. My team's 0-6. We're dominating. That's great to see. But also this team doesn't have anybody because I haven't built them up. They're 68 overall. But mock draft 2 comes out. You can see where these players are projected to go. It's a cool feature, but this really doesn't tell you all that much because it's still really, really early. Records are going to change. A lot's going to change. Let's go ahead and go to our to-do list. And what we're going to want to do here is, so what you want to do is go into region breakdown, hit triangle on national, and you can now choose the position you want Kenny Ramsey to focus on. Who's your national? Is my national scout. The name's going to be different for you. The positional focus is going to be different for you. But maybe I'm not overwhelmed with the strength of the quarterback class, and I say, I don't really want to know more about the QBs because they're not really all that good. So what we could do is, before I hit triangle, we could have fired Kenny Ramsey and gone out to find a different positional focus. We could have done that. But for the sake of the video, I'm going to show you guys what it looks like for quarterback. He's a quarterback guy. I already have him. But at this point, we could have fired him, gone into the scouts here, and maybe want to know more about running backs or safeties or a number of different positions. You guys get the point. But you could fire them, hire one of these guys, and then have that positional expertise, that positional focus for that new positional group. So ignore the bottom couple because those are to the previous draft. With this, we have stories. Now, the interesting thing about these stories, these do not mean anything for their overall or development trait. That's important. Now, sometimes it will, right? But you can still draft a player with normal development who isn't very good. Just because they have a story about him, it doesn't make him great. So watch out. Trench's Rodney Wheaton awaits. With a background in MMA, Rodney Wheaton looks to channel his aggression and technique into becoming a top left end in the upcoming NFL draft class. So we know he's a left end. Previously, it wouldn't give you that information, which I know seems super stupid, but it's been remedied now. So we can go into prospects, we can go into left end, we can find him and say, hey, we want to know more about this player. So we can, star Rodney Wheaton and look to find out some more information. He's got A, finesse moves. I'm already intrigued. We can see he's got elite traits. This is someone I'm really, really interested in drafting. So we can add him to our draft board, or you can do the method I said earlier, which is adding like everybody to your draft board and taking them off. Just, something to think about. There are a number of different things. But those news stories, right, they only affect where they rank in the class on the big board. So they could get drafted earlier, but it doesn't mean they're going to be worth being taken earlier. So with that being said, players that fall down the board, that does not mean they're bad. It does not mean they're not worth drafting. It means you could end up getting a steal, right? But just because a player's fallen down, like George Fields, for example, who did have a story about him, I think he was the one, I looked at it quickly, but I think it said dismissed from the team. Not exactly ideal, but he seems to have pretty elite athletic traits. Not the best strength in the world, but pretty good. Run blocks, horrific. Might not draft him for that reason. But just because he's going down, that could be because he had some off the field stuff. Doesn't mean he's bad. Just means that he has a draft red flag that might affect how other teams value him and how the media values him. I really hope this is not too long-winded. I just don't want to leave any information out that's important. I want you guys to know everything. I accidentally simulated an extra week. I stopped it at week 9 and went 10 through 11 anyway. But what will happen, and it's been a little buggy, so I tried to recreate the league and it still didn't work. But you'll have in your activities, select super focus scouting players. It'll bring up the prospects list, and then you'll choose 3 players. You probably don't want to choose the guys you already have 80% on, who we've focused on with our national scout, but you can choose any 3 players you want to know more about, and you'll get a super focus on them that bumps up that percentage a lot. But because I accidentally simulated through it, we don't get to choose that. And the CPU chose guys, and they don't know what they're doing. But as you can see, because we had our national scout on quarterback, focused on quarterback, every single QB is 80%. So if you want a baseline of 80% on one position, make your national scout focused on that position and have the position bonus as well, and you will know for sure how good those players are. Of course, we had our Northeast Aqib Talib focus on these corners, so we have a boost for that. So 65% on these 2 players. You really have to think and you really have to choose more so than just the mindless way that it was before. I kind of wish it was more of a happy medium, but I guess it is more true to form with the draft being kind of like a lottery in a lot of senses a lot of the time. But after week 11, you don't get anything for a while. The college football season's coming to an end around week 11. That's why it's there. It's like mid-November is week 11. The college football season's coming to an end in mid-November. And then, of course, you get some of the bowl games in December and January, obviously, but not every school will make a bowl game. That's true. So that's something to think about. The next time you get to do anything is free agency week 2. And that is when, I guess you don't really do anything, but you find out a lot of big information, which is how athletic these guys are. And that is super, super important because previously there'd be a combine grade and you could kind of use that as a crutch. As we see, mock draft 3 is available at the start of the offseason for re-signed players. But you could use that as a crutch and be like, oh, we're going to take, any 8.0 combine grade guy and above. Doesn't exactly work that way now. As we can see, combine results, these guys stay at 80% that we've looked at, but you can see these other guys, like Kean Jenkins is new into the top 10 because the guys have moved up and down the board a lot. Again, the national scout's the big thing. You really want to focus the national scout on the position that you want to know a lot about, but Grant Mueller is going to be big here. I want to know, and we already know he's got great throw power, so those all change to great. We now know that about him. Because we have more information, it's no longer a range. We know what area it's going to fall in. And this dude said, hey, Roger Goodell, up yours. I'm not doing your damn combine. That doesn't mean he's not going to participate in the pro day, however. We still might get an idea about his 40 time and other things because of his pro day results. So it doesn't mean we don't know yet, and we'll never know. It just means we don't know about the combine. That doesn't mean we don't know about any athletic testing. For a guy like Conrad McLeod, I'm sure trying to boost his stock, I'm sure he participated, and he did. And you can see the rank. And for the pro days, it will also rank it. The numbers are usually going to be a little bit better, or at least the 40. Free agency 2, you get another mock draft, and this is where things start to get a little bit more finalized about where these guys are actually going to go. And also in free agency 2, you'll see the pro day performances. So it's actually cool that we got a guy that skipped the combine, because now we can see if he actually participated in other things or not. So Grant Mueller, did you do a pro day? He did, and he tested very well. What's interesting, though, is that he's the 3rd fastest QB, and he ran 4.46, which is ridiculous, by the way. Very, very good athlete in general, but now I'm interested in who ran faster than that. Bobby Cage ran 4.45. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. So Bobby Cage, now we see he has great throw power. Now that we've scouted him a little bit more, he's at 80%. Elite in a number of different areas, plus 4.45 speed. Unreal. Free agency 3 is a massive, massive, massive week. Because just like you had focus players earlier in the year in week 11 that we didn't get to see, you'll see it now. Private workouts. So a few guys that you need to know a lot more about, you'll get a massive boost for doing this. So Orlando Norris is definitely someone I want to know about because we saw him being an athletic freak earlier. Maybe I want to know like fully about Bobby Cage to get him up to 100%. And because we saw he was just a little bit better than Grant Mueller. We could do Grant Mueller, could be a number of different things, but I want to look at Rodney Wheaton, who we only have 40% on him because we didn't have defensive end scouts out west, and I didn't do him as my focus player in week 11. So I'm going to do it now. Just make a last-ditch effort about knowing more about him. So those will be my 3 focus players. We'll confirm that, and then they'll get a big, big, big boost. I do think 3 is too few players, by the way. I do think that. I think it should be at a minimum 5 because, and maybe this is just me just wanting more information, right? Because I really do. But I feel like if you can only know about, let's say, 6 players overall from your focus scouting and all that, and yeah, I get that you have 80% for a lot of these quarterbacks, but I only know one QB 100%, and he was a focus player here at the end of the year. And I had my national scout at that position, who's tier 3. The fact that I only know about one of these guys at 100%, I feel like is not my favorite. I wish it was a little bit higher. We do know a lot about them, but I wish I'd throw accuracy deep as well, or throw under pressure, right? I feel like if I'm going to have my national scout on it, I feel like I should know a little bit more about more than just one of these guys. So I think 5 would definitely be a better happy medium between 3 and then knowing about every player in the previous scouting. So that's a change I would definitely welcome at some point, or next year. I think 5 would be better for sure for week 11 and at the end of the year, because then you have 10 players that you can have over, 50% if they were not in your national scout area. Because look at this, look at all. I want you to see how many guys are below 50%. Inside the top 10, 40%, because we didn't specify defensive tackle. And outside linebacker, we didn't specify the West at right outside linebacker. We are at left outside linebacker. We had it right. Malik Andrews, 40%. Like, look at all these guys. It's either at 40%. It's sometimes a little bit higher if they were in the right region, like JD McDaniels, because we had Southeast and receiver, but he was never a focus player. So I really wish it was not as broad as it is, where you just don't know about half the guys in the class. And that's the first round, by the way. Look at the rest of the draft. Barring quarterbacks, where our national scout was, we don't know about any of these guys. And I feel like, yeah, it should be a little bit harder down the board, for sure. I get that. But you should know a little bit more about more players. The fact that you really only know about like 10 of them, I think that's too few. You can see the news stories again, and we could have, picked our guys to scout based off this, but it doesn't really do anything other than adding immersion, in my opinion, because the dev trait can still be bad and the overall can still be bad. So that is important to note. Now, I think also it's cool to show you guys the difference between 99 and 100%. And it is this. Bobby Cage at 100%, we know exactly how good he is. And although we don't know the overall, we know he's a round 1 talent, even if he's not a round 1 projection. So Bobby Cage is going to be worth taking, but we don't know he's a top 5 guy. We just know he's worth taking in the first round overall. We can see his physicals. We already knew that. And we can see all of his core attributes, all of his important skills. So it's B, throw accuracy across the board, but he's good on the run and under pressure. And he's a great running quarterback. So we know exactly about Bobby Cage. However, at 99%, we don't know Orlando Norris's true talent. So even though we can see his physicals here, you see he's pretty good. Even though like speed's only good, change of direction's only solid. And that's 4 outside linebackers, by the way, not overall. We're missing hit power. We're missing man coverage, play rec, tackle. So we don't know his true talent in the class because we don't have him at 100%. We only have him at 99. You get a 40% boost every time you do one of those focused scoutings. And then Rodney Wheaton at 80%, of course, we still don't know his true talent. We see where his physicals are. He's tested really, really, really well. I mean, running 4.5 flat and then 4.48 at 6'4", 270 is insane. Just shows you how impressive Montez Sweat is. But we know he's a freak athlete with A finesse moves. We know he's still pretty good, even though we don't know his true talent range. We know he's a really, really good athlete, and we know he's pretty good technically as well. But the rest of the players we don't really know a ton about. Like a corner, 65%, I only know 1 coverage. I know he has C for zone coverage. I don't know his man coverage. I don't know his play rec. I really don't like that. And this is Northeast, like Landon Hunter, for example. Way too many N's in his first name, by the way. Way too many. We know B man coverage. And we don't know his zone coverage, yet he's a corner. And I had a tier 2 position-focused cornerback scout in the Northeast. And we still don't know about this guy's cover ability other than man. Like, Aqib Talib's not watching him in zone. He's only seeing the reps where he's playing man coverage. Just don't like that. And 65% is too high of a percentage to not know an important stat like that, in my opinion. And then the last thing for scout college players, you're not really scouting. It's just the same information you already know. There's no boost. I wish there was like a final auto boost, and maybe it's only like 10%, but that can be a lot. That can be a lot to get all these guys off a minimum of 40. I hate that they're at a minimum of 40 where you don't know anything about them. Like, yeah, you know their physicals in terms of their ratings and their combine, but you don't know about any of his abilities, really. I know he's got A for awareness and play rec, so his overall might be pretty high because of that. And he's got B power moves. I don't really know if he's any good. That's 40% just is frustrating. And maybe it's better for D tackle there, because I know a little bit about him, I guess. But for corners, like, let's see a 40% corner. The number one corner in the class. We know how good he is as an athlete. Yet we know his zone coverage and man coverage. That doesn't even make any sense. How is a 65% scouted? We know man or zone, but not both. But 40%? We know this guy's man and zone? Beyond confused. And then for free safety, we still don't know anything. This is the big one. For safeties, 40%, we don't know man or zone. We know how he sheds blocks. We don't know tackling. For safety, what are the most important attributes you're looking for? Minus awareness and play rec. We know about awareness, right? You're looking at cover ability and tackling, and then maybe even hit power for Madden, right? We don't know zone coverage. We don't know man coverage. We don't know tackling. We don't know pursuit, which would be big. We don't know hit power. Tackling's a C, actually, but I missed it. It's on the far right. But still, I still feel like we don't know anything. And because we didn't have a scout focusing on safeties and focusing on a region, it's 40% for literally every single one of them. Also, how can a scout be only free safety or only strong safety? Like, you should know about safeties in general. Just some critiques I have. So while I do like the update in general, I feel like there are still a lot of areas where they need to improve. The draft does change things, by the way, as I will show you. I really like the look of this defensive end. Just going to take it number one here, Rodney Wheaton. We know he's a freak athlete. We know he has A finesse moves and pretty good block shedding as well. Awareness is pretty good. Pursuit's pretty good. So I'm going to take Rodney Wheaton. But as you will see here, check this out. We do not know his overall when we draft him. We do see that he has normal development. Great. I do see that he has normal development, but he is a freak athlete. 88 speed, but that's all we know right now. We do not know his overall in draft. We only know the dev. You know what's funny is when I was doing the first run through, I actually drafted a superstar X Factor corner that will probably make the thumbnail. I'm going to trade him and some other things, I guess, to get the number 2 overall pick, just to show you guys another draft pick. I'm going to take that quarterback we looked at. So Bobby Cage, we know 100% that he is a round 1 talent. We know he's a crazy athlete with decent accuracy and a great arm. You can see great throw power in the bottom left. So we're going to go ahead and take Bobby Cage. We don't know his overall, but we do know he has hidden development traits. So star or higher. Could be superstar. Could be superstar X Factor. And, you know, the way I determined that this guy would probably be worth taking, crazy athlete, anyone could see that. And we could see great throw power as well. We don't actually know his attributes right now. We can only see change of direction, speed, throw power. We don't know really anything about his accuracies. But here we are at the top of the second round, and I don't know about, anybody. Don't know about anybody. Like this receiver here. We don't know catching. We don't know deep route running. We don't know release. We don't know catching traffic, and he is 59% scouted. Is that not bad to anybody else? We do see his A juke move. Maybe he's more suited to play running back, but we don't know catching traffic. We know medium route running. But it's a little bit frustrating. It's a little bit frustrating. We don't know short route running. We don't know spectacular catch. We don't know release. We don't know deep route running. We don't know catching. We don't know catching traffic. and he is 59% scouted. He also killed the combine, ran 4.3 flat. Elite speed, which is as high as it goes, ran 4.25. I'm going to take him. He's got 97 speed, 96 change of direction, elite agility as well. Acceleration's pretty good. And he does have star or better development. And at 5'11", 195, might consider Marco Kramer at running back, top of the 3rd round. A pretty high pick, all things considered. And we don't know anything about anybody unless they are a quarterback, because we have 80% on all those. But if we check through every other position here, don't know anything about the strong safeties, don't know anything about the free safeties, don't know anything about the corners, except for this guy is technically northeast. We know he has C-man coverage. But I think he was one of these guys we wanted to cross off the list already because he was super slow, but he ran 4.45, which is not super slow. Huh. So I think what my draft strategy is going to end up being, damn, Terrell Bolden ran fast. My new draft strategy is going to be draft athletes, which is what a lot of teams in the NFL do, but it'd be nice to know about his skills a little bit more than just taking an athlete. I'm going to take Terrell Bolden. I know he's down on the draft board, but that doesn't really mean anything. We could check out some other athletes as well. But I think Terrell Bolden's just too good to pass up on in terms of overall athleticism. So we'll take him. Normal dev, but he does have 91 speed, which is pretty crazy. Again, we don't know about his overall one bit. And that does it for the draft for me. So you're probably wondering, when are we going to see these player overalls? Didn't see him during the draft. And I like that, because you don't quite know what you get immediately, but you do end up seeing it in the offseason recap. And we did all right. Rodney Wheaton's a 75 overall. We don't know where he ranks in the rest of the class until we check that out. But 78 finesse boost, 76 block shed playing up to is pretty good. Bobby Cage is a 75 overall. And we can see where B accuracy is. It's about 80 for quarterbacks. But good throw power, crazy speed. We know Bobby Cage is going to be a fun player to use in Madden. His dev trait is star. Marco Kramer is a 74 overall receiver. But again, based on what we know about him as a receiver, and carrying and ball carrier vision are not super high. Juke moves is pretty decent. Break tackle's okay. But if you don't like that route running, which it isn't elite by any means, you could move him to running back, and his overall is probably going to be pretty high. And he jumps up to an 80. So some of these freak athlete receivers can play running back and be pretty good there. Of course, carrying is a problem, so you're going to do that. Realize that you're going to get some great speed, some great movement, but if his carrying is somewhat low, you're going to risk giving away the football. Terrell Bolden, only normal dev, but we saw great speed. Tackling, block shedding, pursuit, not particularly high. Zone coverage, pretty good at 69. Nice. It is playing down one, though. And then, of course, you can sort by NFL and see the rest of the class. And see, well, Marco Kramer is now the #1 overall because I moved him to running back. Better than the actual running back. But we didn't really know about any of these guys. We didn't know about running backs. We didn't scout them. We didn't know about defensive tackles because we didn't scout them. We knew this guy had good power moves, and we knew he was a great athlete. But we didn't really know about any ability for him. Carlos Correa looks pretty good. It's not like an overwhelmingly great draft class. I would say we did fairly well overall, but not amazing. So Rodney Wheaton was the 10th ranked player in the class, and Bobby Cage was 11th overall. So that's important to remember. But that is the scouting update. Hopefully I gave you guys some good information about how to use it. Following the news stories is cool as well, but it does not impact development trait or overall. Might, give you some more immersion. One cool thing about draft stories is that their attributes can be changed. So if someone had 90 juke move and they had a big story in the draft, like, oh, this running back jukes guys out of their shoes, he can get an attribute boost to 99 or whatever it happens to be. So if they already have good juke move, it could go up to 99. And that, stands for a number of different stories. So stories do affect attributes. Doesn't mean they're going to be great, though. And in order to ensure that a player down the board is not going to be, bad, FCS receiver Sergio Akins out of Louisiana Lafayette. He would get a boost in the class. So not only would he go up the draft board, but his overall would go up as well, so that you don't draft a terrible player all the time as well. Okay, but we can see this guy, Zeke Rhodes out of UCF, took home the Heisman. Let's see what his actual rating is in development trait. So Zeke Rhodes is a 75 overall with hidden development, and his development trait is superstar. So still might want to take the Heisman winner, something you might want to consider. But again, that is a scouting update. Hopefully you guys learned something. It is, I don't want to say it's pretty involved, because I don't necessarily agree with the meaning of that, but it is a lot harder to know about a lot of players. So you really have to decide who you want in advance almost, and take some shots on guys. So that is the draft now. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.
I hit it at the park, bend bones. See me high step to the end zone. My life like a game, Nintendo. Playing with the best, let them know. Get off the track, the train's coming through. Yeah, promise you get in my way, then you best believe I'ma just run over you. Yeah, yeah. I'ma turn taking it back to the house. Defensive joke, I'm laughing so loud. Speedbird's good.